All right, welcome back. Another Zero podcast. Normally I one bang these. I just start talking and record them. This is my third go at this one. I keep messing it up. So this one is going to be the golden one. Stay with me. Today I'm going to continue the journey of opening these gyms, the story of opening these gyms. And I want to talk about Zero Wales. So I opened Zero Wales with Jordan Hellier. He's the owner over there. And a lot of people find it quite strange that we moved into Wales. We didn't go into Sydney or Melbourne or somewhere else in Australia. We only had gyms in Queensland before that. Then all of a sudden we're international and of all places in Wales. So the reason being is because Jordan started with me as an online client in 2020. We started together in January. Obviously, as you know, you may not know, we just were in the process of opening the second gym in 2020. But in the start of 2020, everything shut down. COVID came along, all the lockdowns happened. Jordan was looking for something to do. He was a personal trainer and he wanted to invest in his education. So he asked me about the coach development system. I sold it to him. He came on board and he was super engaged in the process. He loved the process. He was applying the process, getting a lot out of it, understanding the coaching that he was receiving, really, really bought in. In fact, I'd say to this date, probably the most bought in individual and probably the individual that has replicated what I teach in the coach development, replicated my product of coaching better than anybody else out there. That sole fact is the only reason, well, not the only reason, is the primary reason I had the confidence to open in a place that I'm so blind to. So at the time, I'd never been to Wales when we decided we were going to open over there. I didn't know the landscape of powerlifting over there. And of course, with gyms opening in Queensland, where I had previously, when we opened Wales, we had Southside, Brisbane, and Mackay. So Southside and Brisbane, at the time I was living in Brisbane, they were 15 minutes from my house. I could go there any day of the week I wanted to. Mackay is like a 1.5 hour flight and pretty cheap. So very easy to go to these gyms. To get to Wales is a trek. So I needed complete faith and trust that the individual that was taking my baby, my actual life's work, and planting it over there in the UK, had the ability to do so and had the ability to carry the brand with the same grace, with the same fervor, with the same passion and capacity that I had done to this point. And ask anyone who's brought on any form of staff member, anyone who's expanded in any capacity, getting someone to mirror your product or to complement your product, to take everything that's good about it and add to it, is a very, 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 very difficult task, a very scary task. And again, I'd already done this a number of times, but I had so much control over it because I was right there. And, in today's day and age, we have internet communication. You can feel like you're right there, but we all know it doesn't feel like you're right there when it's that far away. I can't just go there. Anyway, I say all that to say, just blowing smoke up Jordan's ass to say he was the man for it. I had full faith and trust that he was going to do this thing great. And the reason being is because of, again, he came through the coach development. He shone brightly through that. He was engaged. I did a series of free webinars through COVID. So when COVID lockdowns happened, I know so many coach friends, gym owner friends were just struggling. I had a brain, I had skills, I had amassed over a decade of coaching experience, and I wanted to share that with people. So I gave away these free webinars. They were high quality. We had amazing guests and everything. I watched the numbers. So I had an email list of, 600 or 700 people, maybe even more. The first webinar I ran had a few hundred people show up, and then the attendance rate dropped, as you would expect. And so the people that stuck through and were present on each one and watched and engaged in each one really stuck out to me. Jordan was one of those people. So he was just ticking all the boxes. Then eventually he reached out. He's like, "Hey man, if there is ever any opportunity for some sort of a job, I'd love to talk about it." And I was like, well, at that point, I'd really started to move away from pushing online coaching really hard and was sort of, I hadn't moved away completely, but it's not like I was continually flooded with inquiries like I used to be. So I was like, okay, well, I'm happy to do it, but just understand the reality of like, we're not going to, we're not going to completely flood you with clients. But he came on board, started feeding him clients. He then put his hand up and said, hey, I want to do this coach development thing over here. I think there's a big opportunity for it. So he took a few intakes of coach development, became a teacher in that. Everyone who went through his intakes absolutely loved it. I would watch the recordings or sit on the live calls at times, and it just sounded like me talking with a Welsh accent and with Britishisms sort of peppered throughout it. So it was really refreshing. As things progressed with these gyms and these gyms started to look like, okay, well, maybe we can actually do something with this. As I have with pretty much everybody that I've opened a gym with, I've teased it at some point. I've just made a joke like, yeah, well, when you open a Zero, it's going to be like this or something along those lines. And I must have done that with Jordan at some point because the conversation became real. In fact, I know I definitely did. At one point, we were talking about whether he wants to open in Australia or in the UK. I took a screenshot of the conversation, and I apologize for anybody in Perth right now. I said, tell me you didn't just suggest Perth, because he did suggest Perth. And he said, why? It's close to the UK, direct flights from London. That'd be the perfect compromise for my missus. I had a little look and it seems lovely. And I'm like, why don't you open in Iraq then? It's even closer and probably nicer than Perth. Really mean. Like, I love people in Perth, and I actually love Perth. Perth has amazing food, really good food over. Anyway, what ended up happening from there is Jordan came out and did Pro Raw in 2022. So the mission was we hadn't locked in and completely decided that we were opening a gym, as in like we had the chat and he was on board and he was keen. But of course, you know, a gym is a big commitment. That's like all your life savings gone. You turn your entire life into running a gym. You need to know what you're getting into. So he committed to doing Pro Raw over here. And the plan was come over here, do Pro Raw, come up to Queensland, stay with me, and check out the gyms. And that's exactly what he did. So he came over. That was in April of 2022. Did the comp, came and hung out for a couple of weeks up in Brisbane, went to all of the gyms, absolutely loved it, went back, pumped, and wanted to open a gym. So that was it. That was the selling point. It was like, okay, well, then what do we do from here? So there were a few things that happened in between then and actually the official, okay, we're doing this. So that was in April that he came out. We had an email chain back and forth in June that was very boys getting deep and meaningful and loving on each other and having nice conversations and serious conversations and hard conversations, which is important. If you're going into a business relationship, everything has to be put on the table. Again, this is your life savings. This is everything. And so we gelled really well. We were able to communicate effectively. There was nothing that wasn't that was hidden or anything like that. It was very open, good discussion, locked in. We're opening a gym in Wales. Planned that in 2022. So, of course, the plan was, well, let's start the process now. You know, it's probably going to take about 8 months. Let's open early 2023. Jordan was, as every business partner is, I say it's going to be like 8 to 10 months, maybe even more. They're like, no, we're opening in 6. So he was adamant we were opening at the end of 2022. Spoiler alert, we opened at the end of 2023. So we just turned 1. So it actually ended up taking 18 months from start to finish. And so was the hurdles and the trials and tribulations of opening a Zero Wales gym. So let me give you some context. When I opened Brisbane at the start of that year, so 2022, we had just opened when Jordan had come out. It would only been open for about a month. And to get the money to open Brisbane, Daniel and I had taken some of the profit and a small COVID loan from Southside and used that money to buy our portion of Brisbane with Matt Stenzel. That'll be a later episode. But in order to fill the gym with Alico at the time, I had a house. I owned a house outright with my father, and my father wanted to move away. We sold the house. We made a bunch of money on the house. I used every last cent to buy gym equipment. So I used the money that I got from the house, which is six figures. It was over 100K. I bought a container of Eleco equipment. I bought two gyms worth of Eleco equipment. That equipment ended up going to the Sunshine Coast anyway, I bought two gyms worth of Eleco equipment, and I had to do something with it. So a big chunk of that went to Wales, and the other part went in storage, something like that. I'm getting my stories confused. Forgive me for a second here. Anyway, I used the money that I had gotten from my house to go towards opening Wales. That's where I got the money from that one. And we began this process. Jordan had a bunch of like life savings that he put in towards it. The hard thing with opening a gym in a country like Wales, or eventually when we open in the US, pending us opening in the US, we better one day, is that our money is worth half of theirs. So anytime he's like, yeah, it's going to be 10 grand. For me, that's 20 grand, which is a pretty big shock to the system. So that was probably one of the hardest things. The things like people think all the other things are hard, like navigating, setting up a company and all the legal shit that goes into opening a gym. But it's kind of like exactly the same across all borders. There's slight variations and slight differences, but it's not that difficult. What was really hard is just like getting together the money to match the cost of things over there. And so we entered this period of time. The first thing you do when you're opening a gym is buy the equipment. Go back to one of my solo episodes I did on how to open a gym or the process of opening a gym and listen to that. Everyone thinks it's going out and getting the place. It's not. It's buying the equipment. So we bought all the equipment, had all that in the pipeline ready to go. It got to the time where we started looking at places, and this is where our problems really began. UK at the time was heading into the kind of financial mess that they're in now. So they were borderline recession. I don't know if they actually ever on paper hit recession. So I think on paper to hit recession, you have to be at a certain financial level for 6 months or a year or something like that. Anyway, they were bordering recession. UK was in a bad spot. Everything, cost of living, all rates, all electricity, utilities were going through the roof. Like, I don't even want to talk to you. If you're outside of the UK, I don't even want to talk to you about the cost of stuff over there that differs to Australia, because it is a nightmare. Like, it is vastly different. The most annoying thing about the UK is you have to pay rent 3 months at a time in advance. That hurts. That shit really hurts on a commercial property. Anyway, what happens when you start looking for a commercial property for a gym is you have someone like me that gets in your ear to someone like Jordan and says, look, we're going to start looking. Let me tell you, in one of the first few places that you look at, every single place you're going to walk in and be like, I can imagine my gym here, or I can't. And the first one that you say, I can imagine my gym here, you are going to fall in love with, you are going to want to have. Getting a gym in a commercial location is difficult. Landlords hate gym owners. They hate gym owners because all gyms tend to close down within the first year. They create parking nightmares. They tend to make a lot of noise. They tend to make a lot of mess. They tend to get in the way. Landlords don't like gym owners. So you're going to fall in love with a place. You're going to want it. We're probably going to go through the process of trying to get it. And the likelihood is that it's going to fall through and you're going to be really sad about it. He's like, nah, that's not going to be me. Spoiler alert, that was exactly what happened. So we found a place. That was my first time heading to the UK. So we found a place. We started looking at potential places. I came over there. I looked at a few places with Jordan. We did a bunch of workshops around the UK and in Ireland, and that was cool. And then we liked a place. He fell in love with it. He wanted to have it. I've got a cool video of us looking through it and his little staffy kilo running around, and it's pretty cute. And I remember being in there, and for me, I sort of always go, I could probably imagine a gym here, but I'm always looking at the things projecting into the future from my experience in these locations where it's like, I wish this was just a little bit different. And I remember walking around this place and being like, it could work, but it's not ideal. Of course, Jordan was head over heels and in love with the place. So we put an offer on it and we started going through the process, and it looked like we were going to get it. And when that dragged out for ages, I can't even remember how long, but it was months and months and months. And what ended up happening was that the landlord was using our deal to play off someone else to get them into it, to create urgency and to drive up the price for somebody else that he actually wanted in there. And so we were asking to sign and pay and get in and start setting up for ages. Then he started ghosting, and then Jordan went like full UK thug mode and got to the bottom of it all and found out that, well, we'd lost it all. So we didn't get it. And it turned out to be a blessing because the place that we ended up in is way better in hindsight. So the place we ended up in was a gym that I think closed down. It was some sort of like CrossFit or functional fitness kind of place. And it's always hard then because you go to a place like that and you look through it and you're like, this place is shit. It was falling apart. It was ugly as hell. You can never imagine what your gym is going to look like. Honestly, you can't fathom what the gym will be until the flooring is down. Once you put that rubber flooring down, you're like, okay, it feels like a gym now. So we were, at first, Jordan was very much like, this is going to work. It's not perfect. It's not ideal. But honestly, after setting it up and the work that those guys have done into making what it is from a visual perspective, the actual aesthetic and experience perspective of being there is unreal. It is such a nice gym. So jump on the Instagram and check it out. If you're listening to this, you're probably familiar with it anyway, but it's got 2 big rooms separated by this cool like little walk-through thing that's covered by a mezzanine. Up on the mezzanine, you've got like a chill-out area and a rolling and stretching and some cardio stuff. The one big open room with the high ceilings is like the powerlifting room. So you got 2 monos, like 8 combos, all the platforms, a few machines, but it's mostly all of the powerlifting stuff. And the other room's like the bodybuilding or the accessory room. It's got all our machines. It's got the mirrors, it's got spotlights, it's got the cable crossover, the dumbbells. It's got a lower ceiling. It feels a little bit more tight in there, a little bit darker. It's really cool. And you've got this cool walkway in between the two. So it's come up absolutely unreal. And the work the team put in, putting that thing together and changing the aesthetic is amazing. Jordan is extremely particular. He's very organized. He's got a great eye for detail, and he's just made the place really, really nice. So that was an interesting process. I flew over there in, I think it was November of 23 to do the build with them, October, November. I can't remember the exact dates. And I must have been pressed for time because I was only there for like 4 days. I think I was pressed for time. I had to get back for something. Maybe I was coming back for the Zero Pro, or maybe it was something else. But there was a small window of time that I could be there, and we didn't actually finish building the gym. So it's kind of like New Zealand. I haven't actually seen New Zealand in the flesh since it's been set up. I'm really jealous of everyone that's been there. I left it kind of mostly built, but really dirty and not open. And Wales was the same. We had 3 or 4 hard days of building that place. And it was hard work, man. Like each gym has gotten progressively harder to build because each gym we've gotten more and more confident with putting more stuff in it. So there's just more work to do. And building a gym is just in general hard work. We also had this nightmare situation where the timing hadn't worked out perfectly. And so we couldn't lay the floor and then build the equipment on the floor in its spot like is ideal to do. We couldn't lay the floor because the guys that were installing the heaters and the spotlights and everything needed a scissor lift, and you can't drive the scissor lift on the rubber flooring. So what we had to do is build the equipment while they were doing all that. And then eventually they sort of left, but didn't leave. One of them called in sick and it delayed it. And so we started laying the floor anyway. And then we had to build makeshift walkways for the scissor lift out of plywood so they could drive over the matting that we had laid. But the fact that we had to build the equipment, then the floor, then move the equipment meant we had to double handle everything, which is fine if you're moving bags of pillows. When you're moving giant machines, gym machines, not so fine. So that was a real big challenge. For some reason, we had a really hard time putting the monoliths together as well, especially the first one. I remember we had like 6 dudes trying to put this mono together. And it was like the first thing that we did on that day. So we came in and we did it and we were wrecked. Then we had to build for the rest of the day. So that was an interesting process. But Jordan has an incredible tribe of people around him. Prior to opening the gym, he had an incredible tribe of people around him from who he had been training. So we had tons of help, probably the most help we've had of any gym build. And they were fantastic and just such a good group of people. And then Jordan's extended that now to his community. So they've got well over 100 members now. The gym is pumping. The gym is on its feet, and it's doing really well. And Zero is getting a huge name in the UK, which is setting up nicely to sort of continue our expansion through that region of the world with Jordan at the helm. I think that gives a pretty good overview of the process of the gym build. I'm trying to think of anything else quirky and weird and wonderful that stood out. It gets a little bit easier every time, but man, it's a big and a challenging and difficult process. I'd love to at some stage sit down and do like an interview with each of the gym owners so they can recount their side of the story too, because they'll have a very different set of memories and experiences based on their own personalities and what their role was through the process and learning it all, and dealing with me, who's probably a little bit too non-communicative and too relaxed and too chill about everything, which can get frustrating when you're someone like Jordan, who is extremely on the ball, organized, knows everything that's going on, plans everything out. Working with someone like me can be challenging. So kudos to Jordan for making it happen and putting up with it. Maybe it's good that we're on the other side of the world. Maybe I'd just make him upset if I was too close. But that's Wales. Thank you for listening. I hope I didn't miss too much. And yeah, look forward to telling the next story of the next one.